Now, so at the end of the day, you went home, or you went to Mr. Jackson's house, right? And your wife came and picked you up.
Yes.
And took you home.
Yes.
And when you left, that end of the day, you saw that Dr. Murray's car was still at the Jackson residence.
Yes.
Okay. May I continue, Judge? Please. Can I borrow your pointer? Okay, thank you. I'm going to point up here to the top left-hand section of this room. This little enclave here. Do you see where I'm pointing?
Yes.
It's...
Just raise your hand and ask me. One of our jurors is asking if something right. So what we'll do is we'll dim the lights for your request. You're welcome. Juror number 10. Spencer? Let's do both sets if we can.
Thank you.
It's a little bit better for you all.
You see this little enclave in here that's
Yes.
off this room?
Yes.
Do you know who is in that enclave?
No, sir.
Do you know what's going on in that little enclave?
No, sir.
Did you ever go in there?
Yes.
Why did you go in there?
I'm not sure at the time why we went. I do remember entering that room. I believe we spoke to the detectives in that room.
That's what I was going to ask you. The detectives were set up in this little room here.
Yes.
Okay. And this is Dr. Murray right here. I'm pointing to the figure here on the bottom, right?
Yes.
Is that Dr. Murray?
Yes.
Do you know who Dr. Murray's hugging in this portion of the video?
No, sir.
Prior to Dr. Murray leaving, did you ever see him go talk to the police and tell them that he was leaving?
No, sir.
You don't know, actually, based on your memory, you don't know whether Dr. Murray even left the hospital at that time, do you?
Excuse me?
You don't even know whether Dr. Murray left the hospital at the time that you didn't see him anymore.
I watched Dr. Murray leave the hospital, if that's what you're asking.
So, you said that you saw Dr. Murray go through these glass walls here. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're saying you watched him leave the hospital at that point?
I watched him walk away from the hospital, yes, sir.
You see the timestamp on this particular video?
Yes.
1702?
Yes.
Let me go back just a little bit. Can you estimate for us?
No, sir.
Could it have been 6?
I can't estimate. When you're dealing with a situation like that, time is really hard to gauge how long we were even there, honestly.
So it could have been 5:30, could have been 6, could have been 6:30, right? Is that right?
I don't want to give a time, sir.
You just don't know.
No, sir.
The first time you made a statement, Mr. Muhammad, about this cream, this request for the cream, was on August 31st, 2009, right?
Yes, sir.
And you made that statement in the same office at the same time as Alberto Alvarez making his statement. You were in the same office.
Jackson Dave. At the time of the interview?
All right, let me...
Sustained. Re-ask it.
Where were you when you made your statement?
When I made my statement, I was at my lawyer's office.
All right. And who else was there?
The detective.
Jackson Dave. Can you be specific
Well-
at the time of the interview?
Who
that what you
refers
mean?
to what other human beings were there? Was Alberto Alvarez there?
At
No,
the
sir.
time of the interview.
Yes.
No, sir.
Oh,
Well, now, remember, I'm asking, was he in the lawyer's office? Was Alberto Alvarez in the lawyer's office?
wait. What?
Objection vague. He said the interview took place in the office. Is the question, was Alberto Alvarez present during the interview?
Well, that was asked, and he said no, and then he said he was in the lawyer's office. I'm
Okay,
asking.
we don't need the arguments. I think the whole series of questions may be a little bit confounding. So would you refine, please? Sustain.
Your lawyers, they had offices,
Yes.
and these offices were connected, a lot of them?
Yes.
They had waiting rooms,
Yes.
they had hallways,
Yes.
had a little kitchen maybe?
Not sure.
Was Alberto Alvarez anywhere in there?
When I gave my statement, I'm not sure.
Well, did you travel with Alberto Alvarez up
No,
there?
sir.
Did you see Alberto Alvarez prior to making your statement on that day?
No, I can't recall.
You can't recall? Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Not that he wasn't there, you just can't remember?
I can't remember if I seen him before I made my testimony.
Did you see him after?
I don't recall.
All right. How about Michael Amir Williams? Do you recall seeing him there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you ever worked with Alberto Alvarez before? Before you started working? Let me rephrase that. I'm sorry, Judge, about that. You started working for Michael Jackson in October of 2008.
Yes.
Had you ever worked with Alberto Alvarez before that time?
No.
All right. Had you ever worked with Michael Amir Williams before that time?
No.
But you knew him,
Yes.
and you knew him for 10 years.
Yes.
And where did you meet him?
Who are you speaking of?
Where did you meet Michael Amir Williams?
Objection to relevance, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection. 350, 352. Socially, in a professional capacity?
Michael Amir Williams.
No, you can just answer, socially or professionally?
Socially.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to did you work a normal shift for Michael Jackson?
Yes.
What was your normal shift?
I normally would come in about 11, and that would fluctuate upon his movement. If he didn't leave the house or if he was staying home, I would leave about 7 o'clock. But if he was planning on traveling or doing some traveling, then I was there until he left.
And when you say traveling, you mean running errands, going to visit
Yes.
people, shopping, for instance?
Correct.
One of the things that you did was to accompany him wherever he went.
Yes.
Were you primarily responsible for that, or did
Yes.
people take turns?
No, I was primarily responsible for that.
So you were, when he traveled, you were with him,
Yes.
and he trusted you.
Yes.
Do you recall taking Michael Jackson to visit Dr. Arnold Klein
Yes.
on many occasions?
Yes.
When you took him to visit Dr. Arnold Klein, did he oftentimes leave the office looking a little tipsy, a little intoxicated?
Yes.
Was there ever a time when you took him to Dr. Arnold Klein's office that he was actually brought downstairs by one of Dr. Klein's staff?
Yes. And we don't. I just let him know that I didn't see him one way or the other with whatever was going on.
But then he told you that I'm going there because I have a skin disease. Is that what he told you?
Yes.
And that was the end of the conversation.
He elaborated on it slightly. He elaborated. He said, my doctors tell me that I have to go, so I go. And he elaborated. I don't remember all the words, but I remember him going a little deeper than that.
And did it make you feel uncomfortable to have him telling you this?
No.
No. Had you ever, during the period of time that you were at the house during the day, Carrollwood, I'm referring to Carrollwood, Michael Jackson's house. Did you ever see during the day other caregivers coming to the house, other doctors, other nurses come to the house?
We are the focus of time.
I'll sustain the objection. You want to frame?
Let's say in the month prior to his death. Did you ever see other nurses or doctors come to the house?
No, not to the house.
When you took Michael Jackson, you knew that Dr. Murray would come in the evenings.
Yes.
When you took Michael Jackson to see Dr. Klein, Dr. Murray did not accompany you.
No.
He wasn't at the house.
No.
Do you know who do you know who Sherilyn Lee is?
Yes.
Who is Sherilyn Lee?
Sharon Lee, she was a nurse that was hired really more for his children. I believe his children were sick at the time, and he asked if we knew of any doctors or nurses that could help out, and Sharon Lee was hired.
You knew Sherilyn Lee?
Yes,
How did you know her?
professionally.
She had treated you.
Yes.
And she is a nurse practitioner?
Yes.
Is she a friend of yours?
No.
No, she's just treated you. You knew her professionally.
Yes.
All right. I want to take your attention. Did Sherilyn Lee ever spend the night at the Carrollwood house with Michael Jackson's house?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Do you recall an event on June 21st, 2009, when you called Sherilyn Lee on behalf of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
This was a Sunday, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
But you were working that day?
Yes.
Do you recall why you were asked to call Sherilyn Lee? Can you tell us?
Yes. Michael Amir told me that MJ said he was having some weird symptoms and one of his hands was hot and one of his feet was cold, and that he wanted a doctor to come see if everything was okay.
Did you first call Dr. Murray?
No.
You just called Sherilyn Lee.
Yes.
And when you called Sherilyn Lee, did you speak to her or did Michael speak to her?
I don't recall if I actually spoke to her. I believe I didn't get in touch with her immediately. I believe I got a voicemail and I left her a message.
You don't remember speaking to her specifically?
Eventually I did speak with her.
Okay.
But when I initially called her, I wasn't able to reach her.
And what advice was given to you by Sherilyn Lee?
I don't recall.
Sustain,
Well,
partial answer stricken, disregard. We asked.
Did you have a conversation with Sherilyn Lee about Michael Jackson's symptoms?
Yes.
Well, and what did she tell you to do?
I don't recall, sir.
Didn't she tell you to take him to the hospital? Call 911?
No, sir. I don't recall that.
Later that week, did you tell Dr. Murray about the phone call to Sherilyn Lee?
I never spoke with Dr. Murray directly about Mr. Jackson's health or anything else.
Well, but my question is, did you tell anybody about that event?
About what, sir?
The June 21st, hot, cold, called
No,
Sherilyn
sir.
Lee?
Dr. Murray was reached. Dr. Murray was actually reached for that situation, and I believe he advised through Michael Amir what Mr. Jackson should do.